Hey there, welcome back to the channel. My name's Kevin. For any of those that this is their first time following one of my videos, a little background. I am new to EVs, so I'm not an expert by any means. I'm sharing my experiences with my first EV, which is the GMC Sierra Denali Edition 1. That was something I've been following for quite a while. Got on the list early and received mine back in August, mid-August. So I'm not a YouTuber, I'm not an expert at that, which you'll be able to tell by my videos that I'm just kind of an average Joe. So don't consider my information as expertise, consider my information as my experiences. So today I wanted to review some of my feedback when it comes to doing trip planning. If you look at some of the boards out there, they talk about plan, using all these different types of route planners. And while those are good tools, I think they can be overused or analyzed for what they do. And we'll kind of cover my feelings and feedback on that as we go here. So let me go ahead and just go and pop into this. Whoops, let's go like this. So let's go ahead and take a look at just some of my thoughts as far as trip planning. First off is be flexible. Don't overcomplicate your stops. You didn't when you had a nice vehicle, right? You drove, you decided to stop when you wanted to stop. So don't overdo it with the planning, in my opinion. It could drive you crazy. For all your trips, you want to start at 100% to get your largest bang for your buck, depending on if you're going 200 miles or 1,000 miles. So always start your day or start your trip with a 100% charge, so you can get the farthest from that first charge. It's also going to be your least costly charge too, right? Because you're charging at home, you're probably paying, you know, a quarter of what you're going to pay on the road. I think that one of your biggest things that you want to do is find your end charging station, meaning not your end location, but your end charging station. So use an app to go find that. You're going to need to know where you're going to get your next charge for either the next day if you're planning on doing multiple days travel, or you know, your next charge for your return home, or it could just be for the time that you're going to be there. You want to have that next charge figured out. That could be a hotel or some other location. And one of the things you need to look at is that it's easy just to drive up to your favorite Electrify America, Tesla charging station, do a fast charge, but we all know that those are expensive. So that could be a hotel or a level 2 slow charger that you plug into overnight or the next day and have that planned out so that, hey, you can take and drop it at your mall that has a slow charger and go spend the day at the mall, or have your friends pick you up, or do whatever. So you really want to find your end charging station and then make sure they don't have any idle fees if you do happen to leave it there. So I'm going to be taking a trip here, which I'm going to record, and my end charging station is about a mile away from where I'm going to be staying. I'm going to just drop it off there and let it sit overnight and get a good charge on a ChargePoint slower charger, but it's half the cost. So that's one of the things that also that if you look at some of these YouTubers that talk about all the different ways to get around and how to do it the fastest and best way, they're not really considering that, hey, we don't all want to pay 50, 60 cents per kilowatt on this charge and get it there fast. One of the things I don't like about the apps is that they make a lot of assumptions, right? And they tend to be a little more cautious on the stops because they want to have a range set, the buffer set in there. But apps can't account for things like winds or payloads or charging speeds or errors or failures, right? It's not going to know that there's a 20-mile-an-hour wind that you're bucking in this 9,000-pound vehicle. It's just not going to know that, and that's going to play effect. I've driven back and forth to rural Minnesota with some very heavy winds, and it really makes a big difference. You can pull up to a station rated at 350 kilowatts, and guess what? It's only giving you 50. I've had that as well. So you have to decide if you're going to move or if you're going to do something else. You can also have failures. I had, like in that case, I had a failure. I had to go to another one. So apps can't predict you also, right? So we've got a big vehicle here. It's rated at 440 miles. You're not going to get that out on the highway, but even 300 miles. Let's say you could get 300 miles. 300 divided by 75 miles an hour, it's over 3 hours. So I'm not sure about you, but me, a passenger, a pet, might need a potty break, might need a snack. If you're going to pull over for that, you just as well take a look at what you're doing for charging. So albeit your maps and your planner tools can show you all these different strategies, they're not always really taking into consideration your needs when you're using that. One of the things I like to use is Google Voice. So set in your destination. It's going to show you on our EVs or on our Denali, it's going to show you some planned stops just automatically. You can either leave them in there or exit them out, and I'll show you that in my follow-up video when I'm doing my trip. But you can just use Google Voice and say, hey, Google Voice, DC charger along my route. And it'll start popping them up there. So if you're driving along and I got to go potty or whatever, it might be able to find it. You're going to want to go in there and specifically set your settings for what charge stations and charge types you want. And again, I'll show you how to do that. But I've done that multiple times where I'm getting ready to, I need to stop. I need to get out. And my stop is not for another little ways. Well, hey Google, where's my next charge point? And she's probably going to talk to me behind me. Another thing that's good is that within our vehicles is that you can use Google to scout the areas nearby. So if you look at your screen and you maybe click on that charge station, there's a button there that'll show you what's nearby. So if you want to grab something to eat, you can check out 3 charge stations. You can see how far off the road they are. You can check and see what food places are next door to take advantage of all that. So again, I'll show you that within the app. And then the longer you go, the farther plan, the longer charge time, right? I think that's pretty obvious, but you know, you need to plan for those charge times. So if you're trying to be someplace, I wouldn't just go by what the map says or your planner. There's too many variables that you don't know about. You might have it all planned out, and guess what? Now you need a break. Your dog has to go, whatever. What do? Do you not charge while you're pulled off? I would. Again, these are all my opinions. You can figure it out on your own. Something else is that driving fast doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get to your destination faster. As I mentioned, I did a Chicago trip from Minneapolis to Chicago, and I had to go to southern Minnesota to visit my parents. And because it was going to be a longer time frame, longer distance, I decided to drive over 80 miles an hour, a little over the speed limit. But it didn't get me there any faster. It just drained my vehicle down much faster. I don't have any empirical proof, but it was one of the lowest kilowatts or miles per kilowatt that I'd ever gotten. So my next trip, I'm going to actually just slow it down. Slow is fast, sometimes they say. So you know, that's what you're going to have to think about. Something else, be flexible. You may find that charge station is not living up to the standards. So you might have to just cut out and go on to the next one and find something better. And I would also say sometimes they talk about the charge curve, you know, once you get to 80 that it's going to go down. I've actually was at a charger where I was only getting, I was getting 183 kilowatt hours, and it did that all the way up to 95%. At 95% it dropped down to about 100. So I wouldn't just unplug at 80 because that's what somebody says or that's what some other YouTuber talked about. If you're getting a good charge and you're going to need it to get where you're going, you might just want to continue on. It really depends on, again, is that going to get you way past your destination? Would it be better to come into your destination a little less so you can utilize a charging station that's cheaper at your destination? For kind of some of the planning, you can use your trip meter and get a readout on the current miles per kilowatt. And using that, you can kind of figure out where you're going, right? So if you're getting 1.5 miles per kilowatt and you're at, you need to go 200 miles, you can just do the math and figure out what you need to do there. So that can kind of give you an idea. So just a note here, understand your max range. If you're the driver of this Sierra, or RST, I guess, you're driving one of the biggest battery vehicles out there. Now, we don't get the most efficiency, but we have a huge battery. We're going to likely, whether it's bad conditions or not, going to achieve maybe the minimum of 300 to 350 before we need to charge. Maybe not pulling a load, but that's a long ways to go without stopping. So think about that when you start doing some of the math. A worst case scenario, you use 90% of 200 kilowatt battery. You drive 80 plus miles an hour into a headwind, and you might get as low as 1.6 miles per kilowatt. That still gets you 300 miles. So that's what I did when I went to Chicago. I got 1.6 miles per kilowatt, and I was getting 300 miles in that range, doing 80 plus miles an hour. So if you know where your next chargers are, sometimes they say, well, hey, you don't want to get below 20%. If you know where your next charger is, there's nothing that says you can't go down to 10, 5. It's just what's your risk level. There's a chart below that's estimated number of miles that can be achieved consuming 80%. So let's just go down here. This is the math that I get there. I'm assuming about 212 kilowatt battery. I've heard 220. I've heard 210. But your vehicle size multiplied by 0.8, so 212 times 0.8 equals 170. So 170 times 2 miles is 340 kilowatt hours to get you at 80%. I use 80% as a safe space, so that's if you get 80% of that 212 kilowatt battery. That's about 170 again, total battery space times 2 miles. If I take that and take this down here, this is where this comes in. So at 2 miles per kilowatt, you can go about 340, 1.8, 306, 1.6, 272, and 1.4, 238. Again, just some estimates to understand how far can I make it. So if you're mid-trip and you want to know how many more miles there, how much miles you're going to need to get there, you can kind of utilize these numbers to get there. So that's just some feedback that I have on when trip planning. Again, like I said, I will be taking a trip here in the next week. I'm going to document it. It's going to be kind of a circular trip from Minneapolis to Chicago to southwestern Minnesota, where I'm going to have to run some back and forth errands and then back to Minneapolis. So it's going to be about 1,200 miles. And I'm going to document some of my activities and strategies along the way. If you want to optimize, some of the fastest times to get there, there are some tools out there. There are some videos from out-of-spec reviews or out-of-spec motoring on how to get the most out of your vehicle if you really want to be that type of traveler where you're just really trying to push the limits. A better route planner is a route planner that I've looked at. It's interesting because it allows you to put in there some of your miles per hour or a percentage of your miles per hour so you can get a more accurate time. But I tried it. I really thought that just caused me more anxiety trying to follow the plan that was written on that app. So going back up to number 1, be flexible. If you treat your trip like you've got to follow this plan and all of a sudden you start realizing you're not, that's where range anxiety is going to come in. And I did my very first trip. I had range anxiety. Why was I going to get to that spot? Wasn't I going to get to that spot? Why am I being told to stop? It doesn't seem like I should be stopping. Use your own judgment. And I think that this is just some of my tips. So have a great day. If you like this content, go ahead and subscribe. Also, I'm not an expert. It's my opinion. I'm more than happy to have you put comments on there. You can slam me. I don't really care. If you want to just have discussions, go ahead and put them down below. If you want to see all my spelling issues, that's great too. I just kind of slapped this together. So feel free. Thanks and have a great day.